What is WCU and RCU?
Hi all, welcome back. So in the last lecture we have learned about how to create the dynamoDb table on the console and we saw how to do CRUD operation on it. So the next thing we have to learn is WCU and RCUs. So WCU and RCUs are kind of like processor which sits before your table, and they will actually do the writing and reading of data to your table or from your table. So you can consider them as like a processor which will be used to do operation on your table. So their full form is also read write capacity unit and read capacity unit. So when you create a table, at that time it will ask you, um, so here you have to click on customize settings. Then if you go here, then here you can see that there are two modes of reading and writing. One is on demand, which is pretty easy to understand, that AWS will take care of assigning the read capacity unit and write capacity unit, but it will cost you more, actually a lot more. So you actually have to go with provisioned mode here if you know how much data you have to be writing to your table or from your table. And there are options of auto scaling also. So do auto scaling also, then you can scale it down to 1 if you don't have a lot of current operation on your table, and the same can happen for WCUs also. So how do we actually calculate the number of WCU and RCU? So to understand this, let's go here. So you have to remember some formulas, okay? So one WCU can write, or it will provide you a speed of 1 KB per second. Okay, so this is the formula. If you can't say it properly, so this is the formula we have for WCUs. So one WCU can write 1 KB per second. So let's say you have a requirement, and the exam will test you on this. So do remember these formulas. So let's say you have a requirement of writing 20 items of 4 kbs, right, per sec. So you are writing 20 items per second, and each item is of size 4 kb. So how much data you are writing per second? So we will multiply this obviously. So 20 into 4 is 80. So you are writing 80 kb per second. But one WCU can provide you only 1 kb per second of throughput, right? So how much WCU you will require here? 80 WCUs, right? So you will require 80 WCUs to do these operations properly. So this one was simple, and calculating WCUs is usually easy. Just remember this formula. You have to remember this formula, that one WCU can do 1 KB per second throughput. Now moving on to RCUs. So for the read capacity unit, we have to understand there are two modes of reading. So first mode of reading is strongly consistent, and second mode of reading is eventually consistent. So what do I mean by strongly consistent and eventually consistent? So you have your DynamoDB, and inside you have DynamoDB servers. Okay, even though it is a serverless offering, there are servers in the background which you don't see or manage. That's what serverless means. Always remember that. So now we have these servers. So let's assume you wrote something and it went to this first server. So this is server 1, 2, and 3. So you wrote something here, and after just writing, you are trying to read data. So in that case, the read can actually happen from any of this server. And if the data is not replicated, it takes a little bit of time to replicate this data across all the servers. So if the data is not replicated, you will receive a stale data. Okay, so that's why there are two modes of read. One is strongly consistent and one is eventually consistent. So strongly consistent read will guarantee you that you will always receive the data which won't be stale. So your read would be always happening after the replication, and eventually consistent read does not guarantee you this. And since strongly consistent read provides you more feature, it will cost you more. So for the strongly consistent read, you can have one RCU and it will do 4 KB per second. So this is the throughput of strongly consistent read. For eventually consistent read, you have one RCU and it can do 8 KB per second. So remember that. Okay. So eventually consistent will have a better throughput because it requires less RCU. It doesn't have to go to all these servers to check your data. But strongly consistent read does have to do that. That's why it consumes more of your computing units. So these are the formulas you have to remember. I'll send them to you. Just comment WCU RCU in the comment box and I will forward them to you. So now let's look at some example on the calculation we would have to do in the developer examination. So let's say you are reading 20 items and they are of 4 KB. Okay, so you are reading 20 items of 4 KB. So how much data you are reading per second? So you are reading 80 KB of data per second, right? You are reading this much of data per second. We have to multiply this obviously. So 20 item per second and each item is of 4 KB. So you are reading 80 KBs per second. And we go back to our formula and we see that one RCU can do 4 KBs per second, right? So how much RCU you will require here? So one RCU can do 4 KBs and we are doing 80 KBs. So we will require 20 RCUs because we will divide it with 4 KB and after dividing we will get 20. Okay, so that's how the RCUs are calculated. You just have to remember these formulas. Three formulas. One RCU is 4 KB per second for strongly consistent read. For eventually consistent read, one RCU is 8 KB per second. And for WCU, it's 1 WCU for 1 KB. Pretty simple. So hope you learned something today from this. If not, I can try to create another video. Just paste your queries in the comment box and I'll see you in the next one.